All right, well, should we get started?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is Deep Dive, State of Drupal 9. These slides are open source and released under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike 2.5 license. And special thanks to these people listed here for improvement suggestions and feedback. This session is heavy on practical tools, documentation, policy, and other information, and it would be impossible to put all the links on the slides and allow enough time for people to pencil them down, so use this link to review the slides with speaker notes. We have a special version of this talk for DrupalCon, and I've pasted the link to these slides in the chat. I'll do that one more time here, so you can follow along with that deck.
Yeah, there's a link to the slides that are not branched for DrupalCon, and that's on the screen for people who want to present this at their events.
Exactly. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation. In the chat, if you have a question, prefix your question with Q:, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can. My name is Amber Matz. I work at OCL Labs on Drupalize.me. I'm a co-maintainer of the experimental core module help topics, and you can contact me on the interwebs at Amber Himes Matz.
Thank you. I'm Gabor Hojci from Hungary. I work at Acquia forever, basically. I'm an initiative coordinator for Drupal 9, and generally an initiative coordinator for Drupal core. That's a title that most events fix on my badge because it must be a typo, but I'm actually trying to help coordinators be effective. Being a Drupal core contributor forever as well, and core committers, you can find me on Twitter at Gabor Hojci. So the first question, this is a deep dive Drupal 9, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room. So who is I don't know who of you are using Drupal 7, but I would assume that a significant amount of you are using Drupal 7, because if you look at the usage stats for Drupal.org, more than 60% of Drupal users may be using Drupal 7 at this time. So it's a significant part of Drupal's user base. So we can't ignore that question. The problem with Drupal 7, or moving from Drupal 7, is when we built Drupal 8, how we did Drupal 8 is we basically took Drupal 7, we created a branch, and then we went happy and changed whatever we wanted. And we wanted to make it object-oriented, and we wanted to use new technologies, we wanted to introduce new features. And it was a happy time for a while. And then we realized that a bunch of things we started refactoring are not yet done, and we still need to polish those up. And then we still wanted to do some more things, and that just piled up, and it took a long time to even release Drupal 8. And that was a problem for a lot of people because the rebuild of core from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8 took a long time. So if you put something in core, it took a long time for it to be released. It was also a problem for users of Drupal because moving off from Drupal 7 is hard. It was also a problem for contributed project maintainers because they need to learn all of these new APIs. So it seemed to be a good idea to try to refactor and rebuild as much as we can, but we found that being a challenge. On the other hand, we got a lot of value from doing that because a lot of those refactorings allowed us to do great features like BigPipe, thanks to the very, very fine-grained caching information that we have. And that wouldn't be possible in the Drupal 7 architecture that we've had. So there's some benefits to what we did, but we also learned from this process that was bad for core contributors, bad for users, and bad for country maintainers alike. If you are on Drupal 7, though, what you are facing right now is a rebuild. We can call it an upgrade. We can call it something else. Probably rebuild is the best term that we can use. You would use the Drupal 7 version of upgrade status, which is going to tell you if your Drupal 7 versions of your modules are available for Drupal 8. We have an issue to make that module also display if your Drupal 8 module is also compatible with Drupal 9. That's not yet done, but we hope to do that soon. And then your Drupal 7 upgrade status module would tell you if your update to Drupal 8 is also Drupal 9 compatible. There's the Drupal module upgrader project that helps you convert your custom code from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8/9. And it will not do a perfect job, but it will do a best effort on like hook menu, hook block, and a bunch of other very common things. So you get a big head start. And then there's the migrate suite in core and in contrib that allows you to take your data, your content, and some of your configuration and migrate it over to Drupal 8 or 9. There are some improvements to these tools with Drupal 9 or alongside building Drupal 9. So one of the things that we made sure is that the Drupal module upgrader generates code that is Drupal 8 and 9 compatible at once. And this is a whole new paradigm with Drupal 9 and Drupal, some versions of Drupal 8, that you can have code that is both compatible with Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 at once. We'll talk about more of that later on in the presentation. And the other thing that's sort of new with Drupal 9 and 8.9 is that the migrate multilingual core module is now stable. So there's no part of the migrate module suite in core that is experimental anymore. All the parts in core are stable. So you can use that to migrate to Drupal 8 or 9. The best improvements in 8, 9, and 9 for this are the migrations of revisionable translated content. They're perfectly merged together in the right revisions and everything for Drupal 8, 9, or 9. It's really great. So in terms of the timeline, what you're looking at is we've recently extended the Drupal 7 end of life. So now the Drupal 7 security and bug fix support goes all the way to 2022 November. There's going to be bug fix releases of Drupal 7 alongside the same timeline that Drupal 9 release is going to be released. So twice a year. If you just need the content of your website to be up, but not the interactive parts, then Lullabot actually has a great article series on how to make your Drupal 7 website a static website. So go check them out. And starting November 2022, if you still need more support for your Drupal 7 site, there's vendor extended commercial support for Drupal 7. There's a bunch of vendors that are providing contract-based support for your Drupal 7 sites. Keep in mind that the contributed module space will not be that good supported anymore. The PHP versions will go end of life. So there's going to be a bunch of challenges, some of which the vendors will support, some of which they will have a hard time supporting, but they will do as best as they can in the confines of your contract to support your Drupal 7 sites. And that goes all the way to around the end of 2025. So Drupal 7 is still going to have a long life ahead of it.
Now, instead of creating a whole new branch when we started working on the new version, we built Drupal 9 almost entirely in Drupal 8. We'll also continue working on Drupal 10 in Drupal 9, and so on. So adopting Drupal 8 or 9 now means you get in on this new innovation scheme where the updates are much easier to adopt. But what does building Drupal 9 in 8 mean exactly? First, we adopted 3 key mechanisms to allow for innovation in Drupal 8. First, semantic versioning. It allows us to separate new feature releases, minor versions, from bug fixes or patch versions. This way, we could release 8.1.x, 8.2.x, etc. with new features and API additions while keeping backwards compatibility as much as possible. This allowed us to add a media library, layout builder, BigPipe, JSON API, settings tray, and so on in Drupal 8. It also allowed us to add new APIs to Drupal 8. Second, scheduled releases every 6 months allowed us to push out improvements to user sites much faster than before. We received feedback sooner so we could adjust direction. This also provided a lot more incentives to contribute. And finally, experimental modules and themes allowed us to release unfinished improvements where we needed more feedback. we learned that we needed to provide backwards compatibility for these and adjusted our process as we went. See drupal.org/core/experimental for more information about experimental projects.
So if we can do all of that stuff, right, we can release new features. We do them twice a year. We don't need to wait when it's ready. When it's ready, it's not coming out in 4 years or 5 years. So whatever you are investing, if it's done, it's in core, it's going to be released twice a year. Why did we need Drupal 9 at all then? So why could we just not continue on what we did in Drupal 8? Unfortunately, that was not possible to continue that. Because there's a great thing with Drupal 8 that we have a bunch of external dependencies, because we don't need to build our own, some of our own front-end layers, our own Visivig editor, our own interactive front-end components, our own HTTP layer, etc. So we don't need to build those things for ourselves. We don't need to maintain them. We don't need to make them secure and make sure that they're absolutely secure every time. We rely on some of these third-party components to do that for us, and we work with them to make it mutually beneficial. But it also means that whatever we rely on, we need to take care of what their release schedules are, which versions are they supporting, and sometimes they make backwards incompatible changes. We need to adapt, and in that case, we need to release a new version of Drupal core, because Drupal 8, we made a promise, is going to be backwards compatible whenever a new release comes out. Older contributed projects and custom code would be backwards compatible. So each of these have their own situation. We were using Symfony 3.4 in PHP 8, and that goes end of life in November next year. And there was a bunch of other dependencies where we need to consider the end of life, but Symfony was the main driver behind the end of life of Drupal 8. So here, the Symfony 3 end of life is November next year. So we defined Drupal 8 security and bug fix support to end there. Our only alternative would have been to basically fork Symfony 3 or to get them to support it longer. But they are not Drupal. We can't really make them do stuff that we wouldn't do. So that's why we decided that we need to end Drupal 8 support there. And then the next question was, how long do we need to give people to update to the new version? And we wanted to have at least 12 months, but we ended up providing even more as we released Drupal 9 on June 3rd, 2020, a little while ago. So what we do here is we go on with the new feature releases of Drupal 9 from there on, and we keep supporting Drupal 8.9 until the end of next year. And then Drupal 8 support stops, and there's not going to be any extended support because we are not going to support a fork of Symfony 3 for Drupal 8. There's some crystal balling coming up here, but there's Symfony 4 end of life is coming up 2023, Q4. And as Dries said, that's likely when we need to end Drupal 9 security and bug fix support for the same reasons. And also CK Editor support ends around that time. So that's the CK Editor 4 support ends around that time. So that also factors into that. So what we plan to do is to release Drupal 10, hopefully similar to Drupal 9, a year and a half before we need to stop supporting Drupal 9. So the Drupal 10 is targeted currently at 2020 Q2. And then we're going to continue releasing Drupal 10 onwards. And then Drupal 10 security and bug fix support will continue from there onwards. So I don't know if you've noticed, but Drupal 7 community support goes on all the way longer than Drupal 8 community support goes. And so people will, and even after Drupal 10 is released in the plan, so there's going to be some people who will migrate from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10 directly. So that's kind of hard to grasp, I think, that we just released Drupal 9 now, and now we are talking about Drupal 10 and how long Drupal 10 is going to be supported. And historically, that would be very dangerous to talk about because, based on the pain that we've talked about from getting out of Drupal 7. But we learned a lot from that pain. And we made a lot of improvements. And I hope that we proved a lot with Drupal 9's release and how the contrib system was supporting and updating to Drupal 9. And if we prove this well, then I hope that you will believe us that we can make the Drupal 10 transition even easier. So the transition from Drupal 8 to 9 to 10 is more like going through these checkpoints instead of moving on to a whole different branch and doing this happy refactoring. And the thing that allowed us to do that is our deprecation processes. So what we do there is we basically pre-announce in core what are we going to change, and then we make those changes with a new major release. So we tell you what the changes are going to be, we add all the new things, and then we just make the changes we already told you we're going to make. So there's no surprises there, and modules and users can prepare. How that preparation looks like this. So let's see, we have the 8.7 API. We deprecate something. We say that we're going to remove this in Drupal 9. We put in a new solution for this that's better. It's a nicer API, something like that. And we go on this path, and we did 8.9, had the more deprecated things and more new solutions. But basically, we've had all of the new things from Drupal 9 already put into Drupal 8. So as you updated the Drupal 8 versions, you got all the new things from Drupal 9. And you also still get all the things from Drupal 8 that we're going to remove in Drupal 9. And what we do in Drupal 9 is basically we execute on what we told you we're going to do. So we remove the things we told you we're going to remove, and we update our third-party dependencies. So basically, in other words, Drupal 9 is Drupal 8.9 minus our API, the Drupal 9 API minus the deprecated parts, and we update the third-party dependencies. So this makes the new major version much more predictable than before, because we put in all the new things in the previous version and just do the updates we promised. And in other words, Drupal 8 code not using deprecated APIs will continue to work and does actually currently work on Drupal 9. So that's how you can have a project that works both on Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 is you just don't use the boxes and just don't use the APIs that are gray boxes here. You just use the other things, and then you would be fine. So if you want to try out Drupal 9 now, then this is, and you have Composer installed locally, which is a best practice now, and Drupal 9 actually also best practice with Drupal 8. You can go and try this out. So this is probably the least characters to try out Drupal 9 if you have Composer and you have a local environment with PHP on the command line. And this gets you a browser. It has a server, SQLite database, etc. So you don't need to have an external web server or database or anything running. Gets you a Drupal 9.
So I know what you're thinking. Okay, I can install Drupal 9 with 2 commands. That's great. But I have existing Drupal 8 sites. How do I upgrade to Drupal 9 then? The first step you need to look at is whether your environment is compatible. PHP requirements and database requirements were raised. Drush only supports Drupal 9 with Drush 10. While these are the main requirements, this list is not altogether conclusive. If you're using MariaDB, 10.3.7 is required. If you're using SQLite, 3.26 is required. And if you're using PostgreSQL, 10.x is required with the PG_TRGM extension, for example. Second, you should keep Drupal core up to date. All the new features and APIs of Drupal 9 have been added to Drupal 8. So by adopting the latest Drupal 8 version, you're adopting Drupal 9's features and APIs. It's also important to note that only upgrades from Drupal 8.8 and 8.9 will be supported when moving to Drupal 9. This is to make sure problems updating to Drupal 9 are limited to actual problems with this upgrade path and not intertwined with possible Drupal 8 core update issues. Also, Drupal 8.7 went unsupported when Drupal 9 was released. So fixing upgrade path issues is not possible from there anymore. The best way to prepare for your Drupal 9 upgrade is to move to at least Drupal 8.8 now. The third step is to update contributed projects to their latest versions. These are gradually adopting the new APIs, and a lot of work has already been done on that. and removing uses of the deprecated APIs so that by using the latest versions, you are getting gradually ready for Drupal 9 while you still have a fully working Drupal 8 site. So for example, modules are getting ready and have been getting ready for Drupal 9 in various ways. Token has its 8.x-1.7 release that is both Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 compatible. Webform released a 6.0.0 version that is both Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 compatible. But how is this possible? And what is this 6.0.0 versioning? So above, Token module said that their 1.7 version is Drupal 9 compatible, but the version number is 8.x-1.7. We learned that it is Drupal 9 compatible from the project page. Internally, the module declared in its info.yml file using this core_version_requirement key which is this composer compatible version rule. And this allows you as a module maintainer to add multiple core compatibility information. In this case, the info file in Token 8.x-1.7 says it's compatible with both Drupal 8.8 and as well as 9. So the 8.x prefix looks very odd at this point, and that's true, so stay tuned. So hold on a minute. Let's also talk about Webform, which had this 6.0.0-alpha 2 available. That's since increased since these screenshots were made, but let's use that as an example. This 6 here, this doesn't refer to a Drupal 6 module. That would be 6.x-y.z, but it's rather using this newly available semantic versioning system for contributed projects. More and more project versions are adopting the full major.minor.patch scheme instead of having the core compatibility built into their version number and using only 2 components. The core compatibility version number is not encoded in this version because with multi-core compatibility like 8.8 and 9, it would be impossible to do so. Also, 8.x as a version number was already not correct in terms of semantic versioning for projects which required 8.3.0 and above, for example, due to a new API. So when will contributed projects be ready for Drupal 9? As of June 12th, 2020, looking at the top 200 projects, 87% of them are explicitly Drupal 9 compatible. Of the 9,081 total projects, 2,674 of them are explicitly compatible, while 2,834 of them would only need an info file change. Altogether, 60% is either explicitly compatible or only needs this info.yml file change. An interactive browser of contributed project status is available on dev.acquia.com/Drupal9/deprecation_status. The next step is to remove all deprecated API use in your custom projects and mark them as Drupal 9 compatible as well. We'll cover some tools to do this in a moment. At this point in the process, you have an environment that runs the latest Drupal 8, up-to-date contributed projects, and Drupal 9 compatible custom modules and themes. And your Drupal 8 site is still operational as it is. So basically, you are all prepared for Drupal 9 at this point, but your Drupal 8 site is still perfectly running. The final step is that you update core itself to Drupal 9. Since you ensured in the previous steps that your components are all Drupal 9 compatible as well, theoretically, you would not run into any problems. To recap all of these steps, you would do these first 4 steps on your Drupal 8 site, and you verify that the site still works. You only update to Drupal 9 itself in the last step.
All right, let's look at the upgrade tools. I see in the meantime that Josh Miller in the chat is saying that he should fix Drupal 9 compatibility with one of their Drupal 8 projects during this presentation. Yes, please, feel free. You may find the patch in the project already, either from the Drupal project upgrade bot or from a helpful contributor updating your project to Drupal 9 compatibility. There's a very good chance that you only need to fix an info file because a third of the projects only need to fix that. So let's see what are the tools that you can use to do this. So let's dive into these tools. So first, how do you know what is deprecated? If you look at the code, this is how you know. So let's see, Drupal set message is the most popular thing that is deprecated. It has an add to deprecated annotation in the code that says this is deprecated in Drupal 8.5 and is going to be removed in 9, and it tells you what to do instead. And there's a trigger error which fires in case this function is invoked and error collection is configured to collect these type of errors, and it tells you basically the same thing and points you at a URL where to learn more. So this is how we know from the code. And what we do there is we keep a backwards compatible implementation of this code. So this still works on Drupal 8. It's deprecated. It says it's going to be removed, but it still works the same way it did before. It just tells you what to do instead. So that's why we have this backwards compatibility promise, but we also tell you this is going to change. A way to find what uses Drupal set message, or the best way to find that, is the upgrade status module. This provides a very fancy dashboard that tells you about your site status. It tells you whether your web server is compatible, whether your PHP is compatible, if you are using Drush, if that is compatible or not. Drush is not a requirement for Drupal 9, but if it detects that you're using Drush, then it tells you about that too. And then checks your custom code and your contributed code, and it finds all of these uses of deprecated APIs. There is a Drush integration for upgrade status as well, so you can use it from the command line. There is the Drupal check tool, which provides a subset of the features of upgrade status. So upgrade status builds on top of what's in Drupal check and provides a lot more features for checking Twig, API deprecations, JavaScript, or library deprecations, info YAML files, and a bunch of other things that Drupal check will not check. So if you've been using Drupal check, it's a good time to switch over to upgrade status either on the command line or the user interface. So that's going to find you the problems, but you still need to fix it. And that's where Upgrade Rector or the Drupal Rector project comes in. So Drupal Rector is a plugin for the Rector project, and then it's going to fix you a bunch of things automatically. It currently fixes about 42% of all of the Drupal.org contributed project problems. So it's going to fix almost half of the problems. So it's likely that it's going to do the same for you. And the Upgrade Rector is just a UI module that gives you a patch in the text box if you need to post a patch somewhere or just review it. But you can use it from the command line with Rector itself. And so what we are doing on Drupal.org actually is there's a project upgrade bot that runs this tool, Drupal Rector, on all of the contributed projects. And if it finds that it can fix issues, then it posts a patch to the project and to an issue. And then project maintainers can just take the patch and commit it. And a lot of times they just can take that and make the project Drupal 9 compatible right away. There's a lot of projects that have these patches waiting. So if you have a project on Drupal.org and you haven't looked at your issue queue recently, it would be nice to maybe take tomorrow's contribution day and look at your issue queue and see if you have a patch waiting from the project upgrade bot. The best way to test if it actually works then, once you fix your problems, is to run your automated tests against Drupal 9. Unfortunately, not everybody has full automated test coverage. That would be a very ideal scenario, but that's unfortunately not always possible. So if you don't have tests or not enough coverage of tests, and you have a Drupal.org project, then you can use this Drupal CI YAML snippet to use with your project, and it's going to give you an analysis of your project and give you an error list specific for your project. You can use this in patches and then get the results from what your patch did. But if you don't want to go there, there's this centralized source of information at dev.acquia.com/Drupal9 that takes data from Drupal.org, which is running this script weekly on all of Contrib, and gives a very raw set of data that we take every week and parse out to this interactive form that you can search for a project and see their Drupal 9 compatibility, look at graphs of trends, etc. You may notice that the data from last week is not yet available. Unfortunately, there was some glitches with the scripts running there, with how it runs the system installs, etc. And we don't. This week we're at DrupalCon, so we don't have the time to debug the scripts. But the data is available from the week before, so you can look at that data now. It's not that old, so you can go there and see what the general status of contributed projects are. So those are the tools that you can use.
So we said that there are no new features in Drupal 9.0.0 compared to Drupal 8, and that's true. Drupal 9.1 and onwards will continue introducing new features and go on to stabilize existing experimental projects. The easy upgrade path is the great new feature of Drupal 9.0. This is what we always wanted. Dries did a great job talking about the shiny, awesome new features of Drupal 8 and now 9 in the Driesnote. If you missed it, check the reception tab for info on how to access the on-demand video content and what the daily password is. Last I checked, the Driesnote was uploaded there and it was on the last page. So new features will be released twice a year like they were for Drupal 8. And so the next one is on December 2nd, 2020.
Right. The whole Driesnote was about what new we are planning to do in new 9 releases. So we're not going to cover it here. I think Ember is looking forward to work on help topics tomorrow at the contribution day is one of the new things that we want to stabilize in Drupal core. And there's also a Drupal 10 table tomorrow, contribution day, if you want to get involved with that. So in summary, Drupal 7 to 8 or 9 is the last big step. It is a big step. We've been working on making that better with the migration tool stabilizing. And we are providing, or vendors are providing, extended support until the end of 2025 if you need that extension. Drupal 8 to 9, though, is the easiest upgrade in a decade. So we learned a lot from what we did from 7 to 8, and we don't want to repeat that again. So we made Drupal 8 to 9 way easier. We built all of these tools. We built all of these automations to enable the contributed projects to upgrade. Palantir did an amazing job on the Drupal Rector tools to make them have this extensive coverage. So we keep using that for Drupal 9 to 10 onwards. So the way to prepare for Drupal 9 is to keep up with Drupal 8 core and contributed projects. So you just keep looking at how the Drupal 8 contributed projects that you're using get ready for Drupal 9, if not already. You should remove your own deprecated API use with the tools provided. I really suggest that you start using Drupal Rector because it's going to fix almost half of the problems statistically. So it's going to give you a whole big jump in terms of your compatibility without a lot of manual hassle. And when all components are ready, you upgrade to Drupal 9. And before that, you still have a fully up-to-date Drupal 8 site that has your contributed project that's running, it's taking your traffic, etc. So you don't need to work on a silo elsewhere. You just maintain your Drupal 8 site and keep it up to date. And on the way, you just basically get ready for Drupal 9. I think that's a great process improvement that we learned from Drupal 7. So the key thing here is that you are getting ready in your Drupal 8 site and not in a separate environment. And then Drupal 9 onwards will continue to get exciting new features. So there was not much exciting new in Drupal 9.0 other than the easy upgrade path, but new features are coming. If you'd like to read more and discuss, the Drupal 9 landing page that lists out the general areas of key things about Drupal 9 is at drupal.org/9. The status of contributed projects, again, is at dev.acquia.com/Drupal9. And you can ask questions on Drupal Slack at drupal.slack.com on the D9 readiness channel. And we have Slack meetings every other Monday at 7 p.m. UTC about, actually, those are now about Drupal 10, but we are happy to help you with your Drupal 9 readiness as well. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We are Gabor Hoichi and Amber Metz. And you can review the links, check out the speaker notes, read out what we said, basically, here at slice.com/Gabor-Hoichi/state of Drupal 9. You can present the slides on your own events, your company, your meetups, etc. We would love to get your evaluations at this URL, which is hard to type in, but is at the top of our chat right now. It's pinned there. Both of us will be working tomorrow at the contribution day. So please come by at the contribution groups. It's now at contrib2020.getopensocial.net. There's, I think Amber will be at the help topics table. I will be between Drupal 9, contrib porting, and Drupal 10. But there's a whole bunch of other tables if you're more interested in contributing to automated updates or Claro or Olivero or one of these other things that Dries was talking about in the Driesnote. That is absolutely more than welcome. So we'll keep up this slide for taking questions because this is usually very helpful. And we'll look at the chat. Let's see. I'm scrolling backwards now.
If you had a question from before, please repost it.
So somebody asked how to see the Driesnote. Yes, the Drupal Association posted that on Vimeo. If you go back to not now, but after this session, you go back to the reception tab. There's information on how to get to Vimeo, what's the current password of the day. And you can go there and check out the Driesnote and see what's coming up in future versions of Drupal 9.
So we have a question. If I want to upgrade my site from D8 to D9 and there's a contrib module not prepared for D9 yet, that's a blocker, right? What do you recommend in this case?
Want to take that, Amber?
Well, I would say open an issue in that module's issue queue and let them know that you're interested in a Drupal 9 version. And they have tools available to check their module to see what needs to be updated there. In some cases, it might just be an info file. If they've already been keeping up and removing the deprecated APIs and using the new APIs, they might be ready to go and they just need an info file. And if you know how to do that, or you're running the tools on their behalf, maybe you could provide a patch to update their info file. So depending on your comfort level with module development, you might be able to just help them out, provide a patch, and the module can be compatible. But definitely let them know you're interested in an updated version. Try and help them as much as you can. Recruit help from others if the module maintainer is busy right now or has other things going on. See what you can do to support them to help them get to a Drupal 9 compatible version.
Yeah, you can offer to help maintain it. If the project is abandoned or it looks like it's abandoned, there's a bunch of activity in the issue queue, but the maintainers don't have time anymore for the project. And there's also an abandoned projects process on Drupal.org that you search for abandoned projects, Drupal abandoned projects or something. You find the process that describes what to do in that case to try to get a hold of maintainership.
Let's see. Is the Slack channel the right place to ask if you weren't sure how to fix a required change? So maybe like the D9 readiness channel, or what other channels, like beside, is the D9 readiness channel the best place to get help with getting your module?
Yeah, the D9 readiness channel is the best, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Eventually, I think that things will just move over to contribute because it's going to be the version.
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna be its own channel, but yes. So there's a question from Shane. Just for clarification, do you have to upgrade from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8 and then to Drupal 9, or can you upgrade straight to Drupal 9? You don't need to upgrade from 7 to 8. You can skip 8 entirely and migrate or rebuild from Drupal 7 to Drupal 9. You don't need to go into Drupal 8 in between. There's no reason to do that anymore. I think if you have contributed projects that are not 8 compatible, they are not going to be 9 compatible either. So it's not going to make a difference in that decision. So you would work with the maintainers to make that project available for 8 and 9. But yeah, you just go direct to 9. We have actually Drupal 9.0 includes a migration path from Drupal 7 and Drupal 6. So all the way to the end of Drupal 9 security and bug fix support to 2023, we will have in-core migration support from Drupal 6 to direct to Drupal 9. So that's the other thing that we could put up a slide like this.
So another question, what about contrib projects that are not necessarily abandoned, but the maintainer declines to upgrade due to some undisclosed reason or personal reason? So what do you do there? What would your advice be if you have a module that you're relying on? I'll put in my 2 cents, and then Gabor, you can also ask. See what the module is doing. What's the function of it? Is there another module that duplicates the functionality? Is this something that you can do in a custom module? You can also, if you don't want to go through the trouble of creating a new project with the this is an open source project, so you can also create a new project. So you could accomplish it in a couple of different ways. If you're pressed for time, probably a custom module with the compatibility built in might be the way to go. Otherwise, respectfully communicating in the issue queue about that, it would also be a good path to take.
Yeah, often the same. So Drupal 8 has a lot more granular building blocks that you can use, and often the same module would not necessarily even make sense in Drupal 8/9. So you may just use some other system of Drupal, or you build on top of views that's already in core instead of having this custom thing. There's a lot of these building blocks in core now that you can use. There was a question about Composer. Is it possible to upgrade Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 without Composer? I think yes. So Composer is not a hard set requirement of using Drupal. I think it's more and more of a best practice now. I think we looked at some statistics data in terms of contributed projects, and we've had somebody look at the checkout of all contributed projects of Drupal 8, and around every 10 modules, so 1 in 10 projects had some external Composer dependency in their Composer JSON file. Statistically, if you use more than 10 contributed projects on your Drupal site, on average, you would encounter a project that has an external Composer dependency. And some of these projects have workarounds that tell you how to manually download the dependency and put it in some directory, but it will become harder and harder to try to maintain that manually and do this in every update when a new project version comes out, and then look at what new version of the dependency it needs and do it manually. So it becomes more and more of an issue to do that. So I would suggest to look at Composer. I know that has its own learning curve. If you've looked at Composer and you find it painfully slow, then Composer 2, or using a lot of memory and getting down your computer, then Composer 2 is solving those problems. So it's going to be much faster and using much less memory. It's not yet stable, but the current pre-release versions prove that it's way better than Composer 1 was. The usability could use some more improvements for sure in Composer. And the Automated Updates Initiative is working on solutions to keep your projects updated in a Composer compatible way for some of these updates that are possible to do automatically. So that would help with the burden of using these manual tools in case there's an automated update possible.
That's all the time we have for today. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions. Ruth, you might want to check out the automated updates project, and also regarding the modules not updating. You can create a patch. Joe suggested you can create a patch in that issue queue and then apply the patch. This makes the solution accessible to other people too, and you can use Composer patches to automatically update that patch when you're updating your site. So that's also a great solution. Thank you all for coming to our session. Please use the feedback survey to let us know what you thought of the session, and enjoy the rest of your DrupalCon Global experience. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have fun.